So, the Pittsburgh Steelers end up dropping what was certainly a very winnable game in week 4 of the NFL season, falling 27-24 to the Indianapolis Colts. And I think definitely a disappointing one. Steelers making a lot of mistakes throughout this one, not really having an offense that got the ball going quickly early enough. Did see some promising plays during the second half. So certainly some things to look forward to as this season continues, as well as some really good signs from Justin Fields in different parts of the offense and defense as the game continued. But I think this is going to come down to being one that got away for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, so at some of this post-game report, again, falling down 17-0 early and being down 17-3 at the half ended up being largely the dagger for the Pittsburgh Steelers. As there's your scoring report. Justin Fields performing very nicely in that second half, and apart from the fumble he had early in that second half, not too many mistakes, but again, it was just failing to get some stops early on was the big difference. Anthony Richardson did go out early in this game with a hip injury. So the Colts going with Joe Flacco for most of the rest of that one, but mostly figuring out how to make that work. As you can see, plenty of touchdown passes. And of course, if you take a look at the stats, the big loss for the Pittsburgh Steelers are those two turnovers. Of course, both fumbles, one from Justin Fields while trying to avoid a sack, and another from George Pickens just trying to go one-handed as he was getting tackled. Coughed that ball up inside the 5. And that ultimately ended up being the big difference was Steelers' mistakes. The defense came out a little bit sluggish, especially dealing with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. But again, a lot of the stats were very similar. About the same amount of first downs. Steelers outgaining the Indianapolis Colts by almost 50 yards, while both teams having about the same number of drives. 4 sacks given up by the Steelers O-line that did lose starting guard James Daniels to injury pretty early in this one. Roger Jones was not very effective in this game either. 122 yards on the ground. And again, a large part of that was Justin Fields' scrambles. Najee Harris didn't have a very effective day, wasn't blocked for very well at all. But ended up coming down to that. And again, this game ultimately going to come down to what the mistakes the Steelers made as opposed to more of the plays that the Indianapolis Colts played. And again, looking at some of those player stats, Fields over 300 yards passing, 1 touchdown through the air, and then added 10 for 55 on the ground for 2 touchdowns. Very promising showing from him. Definitely saw him develop throughout the game, passed well throughout. And again, apart from the fumble, there was a couple of dropped passes here and there. Only 1 or 2 real misses, but otherwise he was very good. Najee Harris on the ground just could not get anything going. 13 carries for 19 yards. Was running into a brick wall most of the time. Did have 3 catches for 54 yards, including a 32-yard screen in which he actually got some solid blocking and was able to rumble, but you got to see better from him. Pickens, 7 for 113 through the air, but again, that fumble ended up being a big difference maker in that one. And Steelers just not able to really stop Michael Pittman and Josh Downs having nice days, 113 yards and 82 yards respectively. And the one fumble that the Steelers forced on Anthony Richardson before he went out of the game, where he was injured, was recovered by the Indianapolis Colts. And of course, Steelers had a chance late on in that game to potentially put a drive together with 2 minutes 40 seconds. Ultimately, another mistake, another miscue from the Steelers football team, miscommunication between Justin Fields and the Pittsburgh center of Zach Frazier resulted in a 12-yard loss on 1st and 10 inside of the 2-minute warning. And the Steelers, of course, with 1 timeout, had to scramble to the ball. Najee Harris not being able to get out of bounds while continuing forward progress to keep the clock rolling. Another big mistake late on in that one. But ultimately, it's going to be one that got away from the Steelers. But ultimately, congratulations to the Indianapolis Colts. Steelers, of course, improved to 3-1, still sit atop the AFC North as it stands. as Cincinnati picks up their first win of the season. Cleveland and Baltimore, of course, still to play in this one. And of course, do have the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football next week, so have a chance at potentially trying to get a bounce back against a battered Cowboys defense, though that offense could still certainly be something of concern. So hopefully you'll join me for that one sometime and got the first commentary. But yes, your Pittsburgh Steelers fall to 3-1.